I want you to picture something. It's a normal Tuesday afternoon. You're at your desk. Maybe you've got a spreadsheet open, half listening to some music, thinking about dinner.
The world feels completely normal.
Totally normal. There are no breaking news alerts on your phone, no sirens wailing outside. But then, just out of habit, you glance at your 401k or maybe a stock ticker, and you see it.
And your stomach just drops.
Right. The S&P 500 is down 3.2% in like the last 40 minutes.
Which, for anyone who doesn't follow this stuff, that isn't just a bad day. That is a catastrophe. That's a panic in the streets kind of drop for a random Tuesday with zero headlines.
Exactly. So you're scrolling, refreshing everything, asking, what did I miss? And here's the really unsettling answer from the sources we're diving into today. You didn't miss anything. Not publicly.
But somewhere in the world, a war just started.
Yes.
It just hasn't been declared yet.
And the money knew before you did. That's really the core of what we're unpacking today. We're living in this era where the declaration of war, that big formal thing from history class, is basically a relic.
It's extinct. It really is.
It sounds a little conspiratorial, right, to say wars are happening silently. But when you look at the research, it's actually a very deliberate legal and financial strategy. So the mission for this deep dive is pretty clear. We're going to explore why nations stop declaring war, what invisible weapons they're using instead, and this is the part that frankly just made me angry, how insiders use things like satellite data and algorithms to profit from all this days before we even know what's happening.
It creates a kind of two-tiered reality. There's the world the public sees, and then there's this gray zone where the real conflict and the real money is moving.
So let's start with the history, because I think most people have this, movie-style idea of how a war starts.
The president gives a big speech to Congress.
Yeah, exactly. He asks for a declaration, they vote, a gavel comes down, and then the tanks roll.
The whole day of infamy model. And that is how it's supposed to work. The U.S. Constitution is, it's incredibly specific about this.
It puts the power with Congress, right?
Yeah. Only with Congress. The framers were terrified of giving a president the power to just, wake up on the wrong side of the bed and drag the country into a war. They wanted a brake pedal, a deliberative one.
But looking at the timeline in these articles, that brake pedal, it's been gathering dust for a long time. When was the last time the U.S. actually declared war?
You're not going to believe this. 1942.
Wait, 1942? What about Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, all of them?
Nope. Not a single one was a constitutionally declared war.
So, what were they?
There were police actions or authorizations for use of military force or humanitarian interventions. It's not an accident, it's a strategy.
Is that not just semantics? I mean, a bullet is a bullet if you're a soldier on the ground. Why does the label matter so much in Washington?
Oh, it's all about incentives. It's about accountability. Think about the politics of it. If you go to Congress and you demand a formal declaration of war, you're forcing every single person to go on the permanent record.
They have to vote yes or no.
Exactly. And if that war turns into a disaster 3 years later, their opponents can pull up that vote and just hammer them with it forever.
But if you just call it a limited engagement,
then you have plausible deniability. If it goes badly, oh, I didn't vote for a war, I just supported a limited security measure. If it goes well, then everyone lines up to take credit.
So we've basically just rebranded war to make it safer for political careers.
That's one way to put it, yeah. And it's not just a U.S. thing, it's global. Look at Russia, Ukraine. Putin never declared war. He called it a special military operation.
I always just figured that was propaganda for the folks back home.
It's partly that, for sure.
Yeah.
But the legal fiction serves this massive financial purpose. This is a key insight from the sources. If Putin declares war with a capital W, that triggers thousands of international contracts.
Like what?
Insurance policies, for one. A lot of policies on cargo ships are instantly voided during a declared war.
Oh, wow. I never would have thought of that. So by calling it a special operation, the ships can still get insured.
And the trade lines stay open. Gas keeps flowing to countries that might be legally forced to cut him off if it were a formal war. It's a loophole to keep the economy from completely seizing up.
So the declaration is dead because it's too risky, legally and politically. But obviously the fighting hasn't stopped.
No, it's just mutated.
Which brings us to this new toolkit. If we're not marching armies across borders anymore, how are we fighting?
We're in the era of hybrid warfare. If traditional war is kinetic, things blowing up, hybrid war is everything else. And probably the most devastating weapon in that kit right now is the U.S. dollar.
You mean sanctions. But I feel like people hear sanctions and they think of like a sternly worded letter. Is it really that powerful?
It is lethal. We have to talk about an agency called OFAC, the Office of Foreign Assets Control.
Sounds like a boring accounting department.
It sounds like it, right? But it's basically a branch of the military inside the Treasury Department. They control the plumbing of the entire global financial system.
So what did they do with Russia?
Well, the West didn't send battalions. We weaponized the banking system. We cut Russia's major banks off from SWIFT.
Which is the messaging system banks use to move money.
It's like turning off a country's Wi-Fi, but for their entire GDP. You can crash a currency, cause hyperinflation, block access to medicine, all of that a single soldier crossing the border.
And tariffs fit in here too, I imagine. We talk about them like they're just boring trade policy.
Absolutely. And here's the key difference. War, technically, needs Congress. But a president can often slap tariffs on a country unilaterally. It's a fast, direct weapon.
Like the U.S.-China trade war.
Exactly. That was economic combat. And markets hate that kind of uncertainty. It wrecks supply chains overnight.
Okay, so economic war is the jab. What's the knockout punch?
That would be cyber warfare. This is the silent destruction.
Yeah, this is the stuff that really keeps me up at night, like the Colonial Pipeline hack. Gas stations just running out of fuel because of some code.
That was a huge wake-up call. But here's why it fits the silent war model so perfectly. Attribution is a nightmare.
You don't know who did it.
Right. If a missile hits a building, you can usually see who fired it. But if a virus shuts down a power grid, was it a state? A criminal gang? A state hiring a criminal gang?
It's that plausible deniability thing again. It wasn't us.
Exactly. And it lets nations degrade each other's economies and steal intellectual property, the modern version of looting a city without triggering a full-scale shooting war.
And then there's proxy warfare, which is the oldest trick in the book.
But supercharged now. Why risk a nuclear war with a superpower when you can just fund a local militia to shoot at their guys? Look at Yemen. It's presented as a civil war, but really,
It's Iran versus Saudi Arabia with the U.S. involved.
it's a regional power struggle masquerading as a local conflict.
So we've got this environment where conflict is everywhere, economic, cyber, proxy, but it's all kept just below a boil. Which brings me to the most frustrating part of all this research, the information asymmetry.
Who knows what and when they know it?
Because if these wars are starting silently, someone knows. And it seems like a very specific group of people are making a fortune off it, while the rest of us are, completely in the dark.
Well, let's just trace the information pipeline. It starts where you'd expect, with the intelligence community. CIA, NSA, MI6. They see the satellite feeds, they hear the intercepts.
So the spies know first.
Yeah.
But how does that get from the CIA to Wall Street?
Through the defense industrial complex. If the Pentagon thinks a conflict is coming in the next 72 hours, they don't just wait. They issue rush orders. They call up a Raytheon or a Lockheed and say, we need X amount of this, or we need these medical kits now.
So the executives at those companies, they get the signal.
They get the signal.
Yeah.
And sure, insider trading is illegal, but order flow is visible data. If you're a sharp analyst and you see a massive, unexplained spike in orders for, say, cold weather combat gear.
Something's about to go down somewhere cold.
Precisely. The stock starts moving before the first shot is fired. But it's gotten even more sci-fi than that. We have to talk about the privatization of intelligence.
Meaning you can just buy spy data now.
You can subscribe to it. Companies like Planet Labs, Maxar, they have constellations of satellites taking high-res photos of the entire planet every single day. Hedge funds pay huge fees for this data.
Wait, so they're not waiting for the news. They're literally counting tanks in a field in real time.
We're counting tanks, they're counting trucks in factory parking lots, they're monitoring oil storage facilities. While you're waiting for the 6 o'clock news, a hedge fund manager has already seen the troop buildup on his iPad.
That is just wild.
They are buying future sight. But even the humans aren't the fastest anymore.
The algorithms.
The robot, algorithmic front-running. These are supercomputers sitting right next to the exchange servers to reduce latency. And they scan everything, not just trades, but social media.
They're reading tweets.
Faster than any human can. They scan for keyword shifts. So if there's a sudden burst of tweets in a border region in, say, Farsi or Russian that include words like smoke or jets.
The computer sells the market before the tweet even loads on my phone.
In milliseconds. And that creates this huge new danger for all of us. The flash crash.
Right, because the algorithms are fast, but they're not smart.
Not in a human sense, no.
Right.
They don't get context. They just see patterns. So if one bot misinterprets a signal, maybe it's a false alarm, and dumps $1 billion of stock, all the other bots see that price drop.
And they assume the first bot knows something they don't, so they sell too.
It's a digital stampede, a feedback loop of machines panicking, all before a single person knows what's actually going on.
So for the regular person, the retail investor, we're just completely outgunned.
The main takeaway is this. You will always be late. If you're trading based on a headline you just read, that profit opportunity has been gone for hours, maybe days.
Okay, so undeclared wars, invisible weapons, and rigged markets. But why hasn't this all just blown up? Why aren't we in World War III right now?
That's the great paradox, isn't it? The silence actually helps keep the conflict contained right up until the moment it isn't. It's the escalation trap. The best way to think about it is the boiling frog metaphor.
The frog in the pot of water. It heats up so slowly that it doesn't realize it's being cooked.
Exactly. Look at U.S.-Iran relations. Over the last 2 decades, we've had sanctions, cyber attacks, proxy fights, drone strikes. If all that happened in 1 week, it would be all-out war.
But spread over 20 years, it's just geopolitics.
The water just keeps getting hotter. But no one single event is big enough to make us jump out of the pot. And technology makes it worse.
How so?
It lowers the threshold for action. Sending 50,000 troops somewhere is politically very expensive. It costs billions. It dominates the news. But launching a drone strike,
Or a cyber attack.
it's cheap. And it's invisible to the average voter. And it's low risk to your own people. So leaders are more tempted to use these tools more often. We end up fighting more because it's easier to fight.
But what if one of those cheap attacks accidentally triggers something huge?
That's the nightmare scenario. We call it the alliance cascade. Think about NATO Article 5.
An attack on one is an attack on all.
Right. So what if a Russian cyber attack takes down the power grid in Estonia, a NATO member, and people die in hospitals? Is that an act of war? Does that trigger Article 5?
And pull the US, the UK, France into it?
Nobody knows. And that ambiguity is what's so terrifying. The gray zone blurs all the lines until someone accidentally steps over a tripwire they didn't even know was there.
Okay. On that cheerful note, let's pivot to the survival guide. We've established the world is a minefield and we're too slow. What can the listener actually do? Because build a bunker isn't really practical advice.
No, and it's bad financial advice too. The key is to change your strategy. Stop trying to predict the news. You can't. You have to prepare for the shock.
Okay, so what's strategy 1?
The permanent hedge. Think of it like portfolio insurance. You don't buy fire insurance because you know your house is burning down next week. You buy it so you can sleep at night.
And in investing, that's gold.
Gold is the classic example, yeah? A 5 or 10% allocation. When geopolitical panic hits, gold tends to spike. For more advanced folks, you could look at something called out-of-the-money put options.
Can you break that down in simple terms?
Sure. It's like paying a small monthly premium for a contract that says if the S&P 500 drops 20%, I get a huge payout. Most of the time, that premium is just a cost. But if the market crashes, that contract can pay out 10 or 20 times what you paid, shielding the rest of your portfolio.
It's a shield, not a sword. Okay, strategy 2.
Geopolitical awareness. You need to look under the hood of what you own. Don't just buy an index fund and forget it. Look at the supply chains. If you own a company that gets 100% of a critical component from one factory in a contested part of the world,
You're holding a ticking time bomb.
you're holding a grenade, yeah. So diversify your geography. Have some exposure to regions that might be insulated from whatever the main conflict is.
All right, and strategy 3, the contrarian approach.
This one uses the weakness of the robots against them. We just said algorithms panic and sell everything, right?
Right.
So when that happens, they might dump shares of a perfectly solid, boring company that has nothing to do with the conflict, just to reduce risk.
A grocery store chain or something. People still need to buy milk.
Exactly. That's the human advantage. You have context. You can look at that panic drop and say, this is an irrational sale. You wait for the machines to freak out, and then you buy quality assets at a discount.
But you had a big warning attached to this one, the liquidity mirage.
This is the biggest trap in modern markets. Liquidity just means you can sell something quickly without tanking the price. And when things are calm, the market looks super liquid.
The exit door is wide open.
But that liquidity is provided by algorithms. When a crisis hits, those algorithms have kill switches. They just turn off. They pull all their bids.
So the door slams shut.
Instantly. You might see a price on your screen, say $50 a share, but you can't actually sell it at that price because there are no buyers left. The door is gone.
Wow. Okay, this has been heavy. but incredibly necessary. We've gone from the death of the formal declaration of war all the way to machines front-running the news.
The rules of the game have completely changed, and most people haven't realized it yet. The old idea of war as this clear, defined event, it's gone. We're in a state of constant fluid conflict.
So as we wrap this deep dive up, what's the one final thought you want to leave with our listeners?
I want you to think about what I'd call the privatization of truth. We are fast approaching a world where accurate, timely information is a luxury good.
Something you have to pay for.
A lot. The ultra-wealthy are buying that future sight with their satellite data and their AI. They know what's coming. The rest of us, we get the news, which by definition is just history. It's what has already happened.
That's a chilling way to put it.
So the question you should be asking yourself isn't, will there be a war? The real question, when you see the markets move or you read a strange headline, is this: are we already in a war that I just haven't been told about yet?
And on that note, stay curious, stay vigilant, and don't take the quiet for granted. We'll see you on the next deep dive.